Morning, Deirdre.
Good morning, Tom. How are you today?
Doing great. Nice early morning, sunrise,
Yeah,
snow-covered field. Where am I?
you've been out doing your farm work already this morning, Tom?
Not really.
Fed the cattle and so forth. That's a New England farm.
I
So
mean, yes, it is. This is in,
obviously the colonial house, the red barn, and so forth. And that does look like what New England looks like these
it
days.
does, doesn't it? Yeah, this is Maine. This was taken last week,
Mhm.
right after the snowfall. So, and it just looks really cool. Although I know you and I both know that snow. That snow is where it snowed and then it melted a little bit and now it's refrozen, right? That's
It's
that hard top,
refrozen. Yeah, and you
the
can't walk
hard
on
top
it.
snow.
Yes, but no fear, we're getting more snow this weekend, so it's change again.
Not me. My squirrel out here is not getting snow, I'll tell you.
Right.
Um, so we're talking about how AI has already changed leadership. It has changed leadership already. And we
Correct.
believe not only already, but forever. So we're going to start this by you and I role playing again, CEO, board director, a carry on from the last video series 71 that started out where the proposal was about using AI agents in the organization, forward facing, doing agent work, meaning where you are allowing the AI to represent your business. That's what an agent does. And using the technology that's available to us in AI models to do that. And we quickly concluded that the organization was not ready in a lot of ways, including that the leadership team wasn't even ready. It's one thing to use it for productivity uses and to use it anecdotally, which we know every organization is using to some degree or another, and their people are using in unfortunately unstructured ways in a lot of ways, which
Right.
can be good or bad. But the problem really is the organization really ready? Because you and I are not seeing the kinds of returns for the investments being made that we'd like to. So with that, Deirdre, I'm going to let you take it and introduce where we're headed on this one, and then we'll go into our roles because I think you have a yeah, you have a drunken stupor weekend with your college buddies from Stanford, is that
College roommates coming in, yes.
right? Yeah. And you told me I'm not available from the time I get off the train until somehow I get home on Sunday evening, right?
All opera and philharmonic, though.
Sure. I know about those wine tastings and wine and cheese tastings. Well, I hope you and your friends have a wonderful time. But we have work to do, and we have a hard stop because you have a train. So we can only spend an hour on this video, Deirdre.
Absolutely. So let's get going. Now, remember where we wound up in the last one, where both of us had trained. You had trained the board members. I had trained my management team. And what we had trained them in was learning the vocabulary. There was no standardization of vocabulary. They didn't know how to use basic LLMs. They had no framework for even understanding how agents might work. And we wound up by having them each use an LLM to create a project based on their functional areas. Now, you and I both discussed that some of the people might not be able to take this much further. This is becoming an organizational issue, and that's something that we're going to actually spend a lot of time talking about today. So what I do now is remember that we had ended our work with our board and our management team in mid-January so we could prep for a mid-February board meeting. So I, in my role as CEO, am coming to you and saying, okay, I'm ready to introduce a strategy for the use of AI agents in the organization, and you get to respond. Now, one proviso, remember that when we're in our roles, we're going to be acting as people are in those roles. That is, we're not acting as Tom and Deirdre, we're acting as a typical CEO with a typical CEO's state of knowledge right now, a typical board director with a board director's state of knowledge right now. And we're going to step out of our roles from time to time to make important points. So I think that's enough of a preview, Tom. Shall we get going?
Yeah, so to that, just a little bit more on that one, that um, it's hard to know what a typical CEO and a typical board looks like these days, you know?
Right.
What I would say about this is that I'm sure there are a number of CEOs and boards that are highly technical and highly capable in this way. What we're really talking about is those that may have, and in this particular case, what we're doing is we're having a board where the board chair is somebody like you or me who is tech savvy, and not only tech savvy, but AI savvy, heavy savvy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also heavy entrepreneurial savvy, having built businesses and led businesses for years. I think that is if it's not a common model, it is going to need to be a common model. You're going to need a
Absolutely.
lot more people that at least are sitting on boards with responsibility, high responsibility, to be able to help the CEO transition the team. So we're going to play what we think people may see, or they may see that they would like to have. Mostly because we believe that, as we've said, we believe leadership has changed as a result of this. And the reason is because we as leaders now have the ability to drive a great deal more effectiveness and efficiency with our own leadership teams and ourselves
Right.
and our boards and our company if we properly employ these capabilities of AI at the highest levels, the strategic level, the framing for execution,
Right.
the options. And we've gone through enough videos in 71 where we've shown so many different approaches to do that. You can infer, because we're assuming people that are watching these videos, they have the ability to infer how to use these things
Yes.
differently than what we're doing, right? We're just
Right.
trying to give them an idea so that they can infer from those ideas.
Right.
But with that in mind, that's how we're going to start this. That Deirdre is a somewhat trying hard, but is like most people in those roles that have always been that way. People trying to run a company and build a company from the very top. You have many more things you need to do than you have time, and or and things you'd like to do that you have time don't have time for. And so this could easily become one where you just don't take the time,
Right.
regardless of your ability or desire. And we believe that this is so important that it deserves that time that you allocate to it.
Right.
Um, and so that's the whole purpose behind this is to try to get you to allocate the time. Otherwise, we'd be spending some our time on some other aspect of entrepreneurship. Even though we love this and we're kind of nerds about it, it's more about we do believe this is really that critical because it's got so much leverage. All right, so I'm coming in on time. I'm right on time, quarter after the hour. We have maybe an hour because you have a train to catch. So we have to cut this one short, perhaps, for good reason. We probably are going to pick up another one of these, right? We're going to carry this conversation on. But with that, morning, Deirdre.
Good morning, Tom.
How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Board Chair.
Yeah, well, whatever. I just, yes, yes. And good morning, Miss CEO.
Correct.
Or
I'm
I should say Madam CEO. Sorry. Madam CEO is a better term.
a better
I'm
term.
reading too many very old books, Deirdre. 1800, 1700 books these days.
Yes.
That's not really
Fascinating,
true.
I'm
I'm reading
sure.
Churchill's autobiography, not auto, one of the biographies of Churchill, which is just fascinating,
Mhm.
really fascinating. That's not why you asked me to come here this morning, though. You wanted to talk AI
No,
again?
it's not. Well, what I really want to talk about is the February board meeting. Think about
Okay.
all of the
And remind me
preparation.
when that is, mid-month?
Mid-month, yes,
Okay.
figure the 15th.
Okay.
Remember all of the preparation we've done. You and I have both had our hands full, haven't we,
Mhm.
in teaching our management team, our board of directors. We think that we have them to a certain point. So now I want to go in with a presentation talking about bringing AI agents directly into the work of the organization. So that's what I want to talk about now. I want to talk about where we'll put them and how we'll be using them and who I expect to be driving this process. Ready for this conversation?
Sure. Do you want to start out or do you want me to start out with questions?
Why don't you start with questions? I want to find out what's in your mind here.
You want to do, okay. So, what occurs to me about things like this, Deirdre, is that when I think about this stuff, I think that as in all these things, and this we started this same way last month, what we had this, or 2 months ago in December when we had this discussion, where we both know that the only way you get real change is from the bottom up. It does not occur from the top down. You have to plan it and you have to execute it, but it has to occur at the bottom up. And it just occurs to me that we've done a lot of this education, and it was really helpful to see that we got the team to a certain level of use of this, which was beyond using it to do just write me an essay or write me a LinkedIn post on this or whatever, which you and I, we view as throwaway kind of stuff. Useful, by the way,
Right,
but not hugely value add to the organization way you and I think, right? Which is value
right,
exchange at the highest levels
right.
for the leadership team. What I'm not sure about, Deirdre, is that when I look at this, I think about that if you were to say to me today, how would I be looking at the organization? I'd be looking at it to say, all right, what kind of complex AI use cases do we have occurring in the organization by function? So what I'd like to be able to know is that if I walked into our, head of legal and I said, show me the highest value, the high value, complex use cases that you're using in this, in how you yourself are using and you're driving, then show me the level you're driving through into your team. Do you think that we're yet where we could, and this is going to be a really unfair question, that we could have each one of the heads of the functions come into the board and say, here's how I'm using it, here's how my organization's using it, and here's my proposal to use agentic AI architecture for a forward-facing value add opportunity and investment. And here's the value exchange I see for that. Are they capable of doing that?
Absolutely not. No, you're right.
Geez, I thought you were going to say absolutely.
No, very seriously, looking at the organization as the in my role as CEO here, I'm gasping because I know that my people may have been able to use an LLM to accomplish something, but there are almost two levels of something. You use the word, the phrase of highly complex, valuable, contributing value add to the organization. Well, I think most of my people were working at the level of administrative. And there are almost two areas in which you can use these models. One is what I'll call the administrative, which drives productivity, for example, or drives coding. Like the IT department will code, or we're going to drive the straightening out a process here. But if you're talking about high value work, then that requires a level of understanding of these models, even how the substance of work is changing beyond what I think most of my people understand. So, what I was hoping to do was to walk in here and get your permission to introduce maybe an AI agent here, maybe one here, just to get us started doing this work. But I think we would have to choose which functions very carefully we were going to do this in because, as I've been saying, that I can't, for example, imagine my chief legal person even understanding what a highly complex use of AI would be. Certainly, same with my CFO. And for using it in their functions for anything beyond administrative, I just don't think that they're ready there for that.
So one of the things that occurs to me on this kind of thing is that to do this effectively, um, I believe it has to be understood across the organization and integrated across the organization where it matters. And I've been part of and been victim to a number of these agentic AI architectures that I've had to deal with customers, not customers, where I'm their customer. And it's clear it's a functional silo that's being driven somewhere else out of not where you'd want it to be because it led me down a path and we can all come up with our war stories on how these things function. But I think unless it's understood and it's the integration across the company is understood, we won't really benefit. We'll run across issues of its effectiveness and its value to us. And the thing I worry so much about when I think about this technology, Deirdre, when it's used as an agent for the company, meaning a forward-facing agent or anything outside an internal facing. So it could be backward facing into our supplier network or our engineering, subcontract area. When you become an agent, it's almost like a contractor. You're hiring a contractor who is then representing you and is a face of your business and you're representing your brand in an external way. And it that takes when you think about it that way, if you're using it for that purpose, when you don't think about it that way, there are vast implications. I'm changing my 401k provider because the people that execute it that are trying to help me keep directing me back to somebody else who keeps me directing me back to something else. They're all subcontractors, wonderful people, kind. They want to help you. They have no clue. They can't seem to help you. And that's just a really terrible design. And it could be an AI agent. It could be a website. It could be a contracted support service person. But I think you have to think about these agents when you're using it as you and I think about purely the architectural agentic AI. It's functioning as an agent, making judgments based on its ability to properly learn and function. Uh, I think there are implications that are tricky, just like hiring contractors to represent you as a brand. And I realize I may think about this in more depth than many do, and they may think I'm overthinking. But when I think about the use of AI, it goes way beyond agents to me. It is a productivity tool, a capability that you can execute very high level things on. And I think unless we're moving as an organization forward, just spurting forward here and there, we may learn some things. And maybe that's the way we execute. But I think we've got to move the organization from its knowledge forward. And it troubles me that, and again, maybe I asked too broad a question. Do you think that each one of your functional people could walk in today and tell us where they think they could use complex AI models for complex value added work in their organization.
No, no, I don't. And it occurs to me that we're talking about two different philosophies of introducing these AI agents. I've been thinking about we've introduced people generally to the idea of using AI, so maybe we pick one place where it's almost automatic that one agent can change something and do a process more effectively. And then when that's in place, then we pick another place. But you're talking about something further. You're talking about your concept of leadership is changing, that every leader in the organization needs not only to understand AI generally, which is where we've basically gotten a lot of our people, but they need to understand how the use of AI agents changes everything across the organization. That when you change, it's basic change management. When you change one process here, it's going to have ramifications elsewhere. If you use an AI agent to change inventory, which was frankly where I was thinking of introducing the same one, it could have implications for anything from supply chain to warehousing to distribution to manufacturing, even. And you're saying that you think that we have to get everyone up to the level where they understand this cross organization implications and usefulness before we even start to introduce any agents. Am I hearing you properly here?
Yes, you've said it. You've said everything I'm thinking. I think that what I think that what I think is that the, I think the leadership team should be banging our doors down with a list of priorities that say, do it in my function. Let me be. And because I agree with the implementation itself needs to be carefully done, and one at a time is fine by me. And it should have its own business case with value exchange figured out and all that. Deirdre, I'm completely with you. I don't want you to go crazy there, and nor do I want to have a big, cross organization mess. What I'm really talking about is I want them to fight to be the one.
Oh, they're not going to do that.
But you
I
see what I
mean,
mean? That's what I want. Now, I know I'm asking for, a discussion about the origin of the universe. I realize that. I do realize that I can want something and me getting it is a whole different issue. But I really wonder if we shouldn't uh, ask the team to go research it
yeah.
and come back and tell us when you look at your own function, when you look at you know take something. Yeah, even, I mean, it's going to be a lot easier in marketing and others, but let's say in finance, you get your CFO to say, or legal even, you say, come in and tell us, give us a report, a research report on what are the highest value use cases that are being implemented today and that have returns, and do they or don't they, and how are they measured, and do a whole case on that stuff. And then come in and tell us a separate thing. Here's, if I had my druthers, me as the head of the organization, me as the head legal person, this would be the one I'd try for us. And here's what that business case would look like. And I want to be first in line, right? That's what I'd like to see. Maybe we're being unfair to ask for that. But anyway, does that make sense to you? So I'm not trying to tell you I want it, I want everything done at the same time or anything. I'm talking more about I just want them lined up at the door saying, no, I want to be first
That's
because I
not going
understand, right?
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
No.
A couple of problems here. One, I just, for my own information, went out and looked at the literature on the use not only of models, the LLMs, as reasoning models to do the higher level complex work you're talking about, but also at the use of agents. And I'm not finding much of anything at all above the level of what I'll call the administrative, the productivity. I'm not seeing any of the complex cases. So you want me to ask these established executives, someone who's been in the role of, say, CFO for 30 years, to go out there and develop a highly complex AI-driven use?
So, look, I know I'm asking a lot. I mean, I would just, you know what we should do? Here's what we should do. Let's do this. Let's you and I want to get you down to have your weekend. You don't get this very often where you get to go spend the weekend in a hotel and, you know, you guys go do your stuff. Um, I know you get together with those guys like once or twice a year, right?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Always out in some place.
Right. Like in the West Coast and all.
Right.
Um, no, I want you to enjoy your weekend, so I do want to let you go. But why don't we do this? I'll bring my laptop next time. You bring yours. Let's you and I together go by function. You come in and say, all right, I have a legal function, I've got a finance function, I've got a pre-sales function. You list them out, okay? And then you and I are going to do parallel research using two different models. We'll do research on what can we find about each one of the functions? What do we see in the market? What can we research from the models of the high value use cases and what does a return look like?
Right.
Okay.
Hmm.
And that and then what are the opportunities for the high value use cases? Let's do that. Let's see what we come up with.
Right. But there are going to be a couple of complications here. One is that we're glad to do this with you. I'm going to suspect that there isn't going to be that much out there that we think of. We will have to
Oh,
depend.
ye of little faith in our good models. I mean, of our Groks and Geminis and
Oh, the models may come up with things. The question is whether they're pertinent to our organization. But
well,
the
aren't we going to have to give it a profile though, Deirdre? Aren't we going to have to give it context and say, we're a this and we're a that and we're in this marketplace and tell us what you see in this? Because without that, you're right. We need context, right?
we do need context. But now I'm thinking from the organizational point of view, which is, can these executives, can my chief legal, can my CFO, who really don't have much interest in using AI in their functions, can't really see it, can they actually drive the use of AI in their functions? You mentioned earlier that things have to go all the way down to the bottom for change to be affected, but that happens only when the person at the top drives it down through the function. So this does have to happen at the top. This is going to be a massive change management process. And if we, for example, do our research, which we certainly will do, and then go to the CFO and say, here are the use cases, we may have this person just walk out on us, which may, for us, be the best way to proceed, but we have to be prepared for that eventuality. That this is going to be a shock, that some people who are used to doing things, who are brought up handling certain financial functions, like the metrics used for assessing the success of the business, for example, in a certain way. And now they have an AI model suggesting that they use different metrics. This is going to be, well, culture shock. It's going to be get resistance, that thing that they always warn you about whenever you do a big change in the organization. We're going to face this. So I understand how you want to proceed, and that's what we'll do. I was almost hoping that if we could introduce one AI model, one AI agent, and have that succeed, then we might start to break through the resistance. You're saying you don't want a drip effect working on the resistance. You want an earthquake.
Yeah, I don't want to disrupt, you know, don't get me wrong. I don't want to completely disrupt the management team, Deirdre. I don't. It's just that, you know, as one of the as the board chair of a company that I ran for a while, he would always do what I call push my next button, right? Meaning always coming in, forcing me to think about what do I have to worry about next, or what do I have to deal with next. And what I'm thinking about here is more that I think that we could gain a competitive advantage in the marketplace if we could figure out how to employ these capabilities in a meaningful way, a value added way, meaning we've created some kind of a value creation and then value exchange using these things beyond the obvious, because the our competitors are going to clearly do the obvious, and so we've got to catch up and make sure we're there. But I'm sure your team is going to make sure it's there. So I'm not as worried about that. What I'd like to do though is to make sure that we have a team that is pushing you and me and the rest of the board to make sure the investments that we agree to are allowing them to build these capabilities on the top of this, because that is, I think, where leadership teams are going to have to go. I think they're going to have to become AI transformative, right? They need to be an AI transformative leadership team. And we want them, as you correctly said, we want them driving high contribution AI use cases, not only down, but across, right? And up. I just think it might, and again, I'd like to do it in a non-threatening way. So I don't want this to be, if you can't do this, you're out feeling. It's more just, it's more like a challenge of let's have them, let's you and I do it first to see what we see. So we're
Mhm.
not asking them to do a Mission Impossible. But once we understand it and we understand the context you have to shape to be able to get good answers and how you have to manipulate the models to do that or to influence the models to do that, then we can give them some guidance and tell them to go off and do it themselves. Go do the research yourself and come back and tell us what you're finding. And by the way, they don't have to do it in front of the board. They can just do it to you.
Right.
And then you can consolidate that and say, all right, here's what this person said. Here's what this. And let me tell you what I saw that that person did. Let me tell you what I saw here. When I dared to look at this, I like that right there. Maybe we should dig deeper in that and maybe we can put a grouped work team together that looks like they would be peripherally involved anyway and have them help shape that case. I am 100% behind that. I just would rather not treat it as a one-off. I want to treat it as a rising tide.
Mhm.
Does that make sense to you? I don't want to, I don't
I,
want to be
I,
talking crazy either.
no,
So
no, no, no. I understand what you're saying. I think, remember, I've got to work with my team, so I'm trying to perceive how they'll see this. That I think that it's going to dawn on them that the work that they're doing as leaders in this organization, as leaders of their function, is no longer the same, that their basic jobs are changing. It's not just the basic tools are changing, it's the way they use the tools is changing. And I think that's going to be deeply upsetting to some of them. We don't, maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe they're all chomping at the bit, but I just don't see that because I've been through training with them. I think this is going to be a very interesting challenge. In other words, I'm agreeing with you that we'll do this. You and I can do our research first, and then we give it to each of the leadership team to look at their functions and what could happen there. Let me also throw it back to you for you to ask your board members to also do some thinking and some research about where this highly complex, highly creative, highly value add use of AI can contribute to the organization. Remember, we want to be able to have parallel conversations among all of the people making decisions in the organization there. So, so we can do that. Let's sit down next week. Let's do the research, and then I'll be prepared to talk with my people. I think this is going to be very interesting. You and I talked when we started down this path 2 months ago that we may have to make significant changes in the organization. I think this whole approach is going to force some of those changes, not just among the leadership team, but among the structure in the organization and how work is done throughout the organization. But we'll see that as we move forward.
So let's just talk a moment about, again, clarifying what we're talking about. So what I envision is that you and I will sit down and we will do the research by function, and we'll figure out how do we contextually do the most effective way of doing this.
Right.
And then that'll help us in being able to give guidelines to the team so that, look, when you do this, here's contextually about the business, what helps to do this. Feel free to put your own context in beyond that. But this, we think just to get it started, this really helps. And let them do it. Let them do the
Mhm.
work themselves and come back and tell us two things. What do they see? Where are they seeing in their function returns, positive returns in these things? And then third, where do they think the opportunity is that applies to them,
Right.
right? Uh, I think as terms of board. So one thing I like to do with and I don't like to do. So a board is an oversight group. I've been on a board where a a hostile board member forced people off the board, and they did it by telling each board member to go do a business case on the business. You
Mhm.
tell me what you think the strategy is. And then they had to get up and present it to the other board members. It was highly inappropriate and um, it was just highly inappropriate. Let me put it that way. And questionable. Um, at the time, I was a board member representing the IBM Corporation because they had an investment in this company, and I just found it absurd.
Mhm.
Regardless, I don't want to put our own board members. I think we can do is ask them what ideas do they have, right? Meaning you tell us what you think the expectations are. When you come to the board meeting and you're talking about this subject, what are your expectations of what you're hearing from the company? I think a discussion like that, we'd love to hear their contributions. That's valuable. If they had asked me, which they didn't do, but I was prepared to do, what's your view on the strategy for this company? I can easily tell you what that was. But I just didn't think it was appropriate for me to tell the company what their strategy should be and put together a 100-page PowerPoint on it, right? Nor did I, by the way. Neither did the former chair of Toronto Dominion Bank. He didn't particularly appreciate that either.
Right.
But be that as it may, I think we have to be thoughtful about what's the role of the board. It was just that I think we had to have the board at a certain level to be able to even have these discussions, right, of the expectations of the future. So I think that's a good expectation, Deirdre, and I think it's valid, and I will do that. I will ask them to do that. Now, the other thing is, would it help you to get somebody to come in and talk to your team about where they think the future of leadership is going to be, right? I mean, I happen to be involved, as you know, in real life, right? Um, with connected with some of the people that work at the highest levels in tech, right? And are leading at the highest levels. This is where they are, right? And you've seen, I mean, you've been connected to some of the peripheral people. You see how they operate, you see how they think. This is how they think. And this is how they function themselves. Would it help you to get somebody like that and come in and talk to your team about how they see what is leadership going forward? What are those expectations? Because I think you're probably right. You probably have, it's the old fashioned, you've got part of them that can't wait and are going to be chomping at the bit for it. You've got some that'll say, okay, fine, I'll do it. And then you've got some that'll just go, no, I don't want to do this.
Mhm.
Um, I think you are going to become less and less patient personally, Deirdre. You as a CEO, I know you pretty well. You don't lose your patience very easily, but you will lose your patience with people that are not keeping up.
Mhm. What I'd worry about this is that someone acting almost as an evangelist for a new way of leadership might scare them even more. I'd almost prefer to let them go out and do their research and then let's see what they come up with, and then maybe have this person come in and talk with them. In other words, not slam them in the heads in two ways. One, your work is changing. Two, your whole leadership is changing. But let them start to get into the idea of how their work could change, and then maybe bring in someone to really talk through how this means that their whole leadership style will change. That I think would be very important to them.
Okay. Well, again, this is not, I don't, these are just ideas. They're not recommendations. They're not things that I would expect you to do just because I recommend them. Again, like I say about all this stuff, you know,
Yeah,
we all have a lot of ideas. Most of them are not good.
right.
So it's
Yeah.
up to people like you to decide which ones are.
Right. What interests me is that you, as board chair, and I, as CEO, are finding that we're still not fully in sync. In fact, we're not that much in sync at all about how to proceed in the organization with this AI. Maybe as we do our research together over the course of the coming week, we'll develop some more agreement about how we're going to proceed in the company. But this will be interesting going forward. You keep throwing challenges at me, and I'll keep trying to meet them here. But this is going to
I
be a
have no
very
doubt you will.
interesting
Look,
one.
I don't think we're as far apart as you think we are. Again, I've been where you are, and I know how frustrating it is to have these kind of meetings where you come in wanting to make this step, and I say, no, no, I want to make that step, and then it kind of deteriorates your step. It's not that at all. I want to make sure that we are as competitive as we possibly can be in this marketplace, and that we're doing everything we can to gain that competitive advantage. And
I agree with you on that, Tom. So,
and I realize also it's not my job to execute, it's yours. So I can't make those I can't make those strategy operational, the operational strategy transitions, right? I can't do that. And I can push you on the strategy, I can push you on the vision, but ultimately I have to rely on you to say, no, this is all we can do. And so
right.
I will. It's just I'm still pushing on you because I don't know that we've got it. I'm not comfortable that the foundation we have yet is where you need it to be able to do what you need to do for the company.
Okay. Well,
That's really it. And it's not about you personally. This is about the foundation that you have underneath you to be able to build upon.
mhm. Okay. So,
And you understand what I mean by that and also what
yes.
my questions about it are. It has
Yes.
nothing to do with you or your capabilities. It has to do with them and theirs and their attitude and their willingness.
hmm Well, we're certainly learning a lot about the organization by going down this path, aren't we?
Yes, and we're going to continue to learn a lot about the board too in this.
Yes,
And
we
I
will.
have no doubt, I don't know whether it'll be self-selection, Deirdre, or not on the board, but we're going to outstrip at least one or two of these board members here soon.
And I'm afraid I'm going to lose some of my leadership teams also. But those are hurdles we'll cross when we get to them. So we're agreed on going forward, and we'll talk next week.
And
Now,
you have all the things you need to deal with a weekend with your buddies.
okay. But now let's step out of our roles for a moment and just as Tom and Deirdre, the teachers here, make a few points. That the conversation we've just had, frankly, is one that I think a lot of people are backing into. I think there's a lot of pressure. I see a lot of pressure in the business media for people like boards and CEOs to just get into these AI agents. And it's all well and good to say that. But one, there's a lack of understanding about what that even means. Are you talking about the one agent? Are you talking about an AI, an agent architecture? Are you talking about cross-functional and how coordinated and so forth? I don't think anyone even understands how much work has to be done to actually do some of the ideas that are being floated in the business media or being floated by the tech companies. I think another thing that we handled in this conversation is the distinction between the use of AI agents for what I'll call administrative work. That's your basic overseeing automation, overseeing a process, some productivity work, coding, or whatever that is. And then doing what we're calling this highly complex, highly value add work, which is where you and I, Tom, operate, and which is where we tried to, in our 71 series, push the board and leadership team and clearly didn't get there. But it's where the real value exchange in the marketplace happens. You and I had a conversation earlier this week about how the use of AI agents is going to change the whole concept of value exchange.
Yeah.
That is what you put forth in the marketplace as your value proposition and what you get back from the marketplace. If the use of AI agents stays only as admin, you're not going to get that value exchange. It's going to be an internal change where you really get the high value, where you really do the complex work, where you get the recognition of greater value in the marketplace, is indeed to move to this higher level work and to create a greater use of agents in the marketplace. And that's where we're going in the 72 series and then in our 73 series, where we're truly going to talk about how transformative leadership does get you to use the AI agents effectively in the marketplace. But what we're doing here is just explaining to everyone, and this has come through in our conversation, is that my leadership team can no longer do their jobs as they have been doing them. They are already going to have to move into a new scope of work, a new way of working. That's what we mean when we say it changes the substance of work, but also a new way of leading their function from the top all the way down to the bottom. So that's where we're going with this.
Yeah. So, the concept of, and this is where, when I talk about, I'm being really strict about the concept of agents, right? Because we are seeing agentic AI in a huge way with Tesla self-driving.
Right,
That is, that car, when I put it in self-driving mode, it is now functioning as an agent.
right,
It is functioning up on my behalf as a transportation from point A, getting me from point A to B,
right,
making all the decisions in that process of me transporting from A to B.
right,
It can either be done incredibly well or incredibly poorly.
right.
And I've been using Tesla self-driving for a long time now, watching it develop. It is truly becoming an agent. I would
Right.
say with the most recent release that I have, which is one ahead of what most people have, it is now a better driver 80% of the time than I am.
Hmm.
Because as I mentioned in the last video, it is more observant more of the time
Right.
than I am. And as a result, things that I would react in more of an reactive way, it's not because it anticipated it, because it's observing in a direction I was not observing. So
Mhm.
when you get to that point where I can tell you, which I have, I've told you that I can see now that it is truly functioning as an agent that I believe in, right?
Right.
Where I'm telling you, you know, on average, if I don't want to drive, that thing should drive for me.
Right.
That's functioning as my agent.
Right.
We have enough capability in AI now in a lot of areas. It can do that.
Right.
Not all areas, as you and I prove every single day doing the work we do for this particular thing, right?
Right.
We've shown so many times in the work we did in 71 series where we were bumping up against the model. It was not ready to function as our agent, far from it.
That's correct. Yes.
And I think understanding that distinction, we're making a distinction, just like we make a distinction about what is AI, because a lot of people think of AI as much more like mathematics than you and I do, right? We understand the technology, um, but and it's a very expensive technology to use when you can use traditional arithmetic
Right.
formulas rather than machine learning formulas or large language models. That's a very expensive way to do things that can be done using general mathematics. That's been my complaint from day one, and it's going to continue to be my complaint. I mean, we're having an auction today on building power plants here in the United States to support all the the AI demand. How
Right.
often are we told by our AI models, well, you're going to have to wait a little bit because it's going to take 20 or 30 minutes for me to do what I'm doing for you, right?
Right.
Um, so I think we're getting to the point where we need to be more precise about the language in AI. What is it? What are we really talking about? And
Correct.
I keep pushing back on this agent thing, Deirdre, because I think we need to understand, those of us that are using this stuff at a high level need to understand what is the distinction where we're letting an AI model, function on our behalf rather than being led by us, right? What you and I say is if you want to let an AI model get out of control, let it function for us without any kind of constraints. I know what the constraints are
Right.
of the driving models, the self-driving models of Tesla. I've been around it enough. I've watched it function. I'm comfortable with its guardrails. You need to really understand that before you should let one go unconstrained ahead of you, functioning as your agent. And when we talk about danger, danger exists in my way of thinking with AI when you turn it into an agent for everything you do.
Right.
That's when you run into potential dangers. And it's the lesson that goes back to the design of the computer in 2001.
Correct. And I think that what we're talking about right now is the great danger in how AI generally is being presented in business media or is being talked about by tech companies, and then having to translate that into how
Absolutely.
businesses actually use this. You and I think precisely, and we want to use our terminology precisely. When you and I were just in our roles as board chair and CEO, we were not talking as precisely as we should
Yes.
have been talking. There was clearly a lack of a coherence between, or a lack of alignment, maybe is a better word,
Yeah,
between
and I
the
would
board.
say, and Deirdre, you have to clear me up on this. I think you were very deliberately not trying to make the distinction of a precise definition of agent.
Absolutely.
And that notice that made, you could tell I was in the back of my mind. And it was that lack of clarity on that issue. And it wasn't appropriate in that setting to get into it, but that's a problem, right? That's a
It's a
problem.
problem. And it may be that the CEO that I was playing didn't know.
I know.
And
And
that's a
all along,
real,
you keep telling me you've set this up so that she eventually gets fired. I understand. I prefer you not because I'm not like that. You want to just, you don't, people that don't
but
come up sometimes, you want to,
but think about the words we've already started to use. You need a transformative CEO in there
yeah,
to really gather everything and move the company
yeah,
forward. And I am guessing that a lot of people in the role of CEO or COO or CFO can be those transformative people, but a
absolutely.
lot can't be.
I know.
This is going to make it very difficult for boards going forward to make sure that they have the right people in place to move the organization further into this use of AI. What makes it even more complex for boards is, as you and I have been saying, the role of the leader has already changed because of the AI
Yes,
that's being
yes,
used already,
yes.
whatever that
Think of,
AI is.
just think about this, dear. What is What's the first thing that's going to walk on the moon? Not the moon, on Mars. It's going to be Optimus.
Yes,
It's going to be Optimus.
right,
Why would you send a human to go do that? You can send Optimus. This
right,
is what we're missing, that's an agent, right?
right,
We could send Optimus almost today
right,
to the moon if we wanted.
right,
Why send humans? Why do that? Right? You
right.
don't have to if it can properly become an agent for you, right?
Correct.
If it can properly become an agent. Now, there's all kinds of reasons why you couldn't, right? Maybe there's shielding issues and all kinds of other things we don't know, reliability and tuning, and gosh knows. I'm not that close to Optimus, but my view is that we're missing when we're not thinking that way. We as a tech leaders, right? And I think tech leaders means anybody running a business today, right?
Yes,
Um, if you're not thinking this way, you could be missing something
yes,
because Optimus, just like Tesla self-driving cars, and I don't, it doesn't have to be Tesla. Hopefully others can figure this out too. But self-driving cars, the Optimus like robot, these things are going to be agents for humans. They're going to be human agents.
correct.
And understanding that in its
Right,
purity is really important for
correct.
leaders. And figure out how does that affect me? And if we get lazy with that, my only thought is, and we're proving it maybe you know, ad nauseum, but in this particular case, but if we let our company become lazy about that definition now, as it becomes more and more important, we'll lose that battle, right? So I just think that's why I am being such a stickler on agentic architecture of where it's functioning as our agent,
Right.
and not just a throwaway application like people that tell me they're experts in AI and all they're talking about is just, you know, mathematical predictions built into a company's application using an AI algorithm because it's so expensive. And then they're now running something they could have run on traditional mathematical algorithms, but paying a lot more for it and be able to say, I've got an AI application. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Right.
And you can do that just by putting such huge guardrails on it. It's not really learning. So, you know,
Mhm. Yeah.
it's
And
perverse.
and I guess one final point today because remember, we're going to be doing our one thing.
We're not doing anything. We're sitting here in the desert looking outside. There's somebody else is going down to New York and,
But one final point. What we're talking about right now is very important for younger workers who want to advance their careers through the organization. The way to do it is to move your thinking along with the advanced uses, not simply use your LLMs to do search or to write a little something to you, but really figure out how to use them, how to use reasoning models to do the sort of work that we've demonstrated in our 71 series and some of our 60 series and so forth, so that you yourself will be able to not only identify the uses going forward, but you will be in the position of being a transformative leader to lead a function or lead the whole organization in this direction. You understand what this new leadership is.
Due to the cost, and this is something you keep harping on with me, not harping, gosh, that's a wrong word. You keep focusing on is cost
Yes.
and return
Yes.
through value exchange.
Right.
And you and I both know when you get on the model and you could be using Google search, but you're using Claude instead, your use of that technology, you have just cost somebody a whole lot more to ask that question. Did it need it or not? Did
Mm-hmm.
it need it or not? Now, the chapter that I guess I didn't send this out yet as the preview. I'm sending out chapters of my, or parts of a chapter of my books to people to read so they get a preview. I think it's not yet. I think this will be for next week, where I actually go through and show you the technology that's being used.
Right.
And when you realize the iterations that it goes through in an AI algorithm versus what it goes through in search, you go, oh my gosh, no wonder it takes so much electricity, compute time, right? And you realize you get a little bit of an awakening moment because it is a very expensive technology, but it's very powerful. And then the question you keep asking, show me the benefit. Prove to me that you're focusing that in a beneficial way for your company.
Correct. And that leads into our whole radar screen, Tom. And we're not going to talk tools beyond this sentence or two. That do you have the mindset to understand all of the parts of the business so you can actually answer that question effectively? Do you know what's out there? Do you know? Can you connect technology to strategy, to your function? Do you understand the value at the end of things? Do you understand processes and how they work through organizations and how they can be improved and so forth? This is going to be the true work of the leader going forward. I just caught myself there. I was talking future tense. It's actually current tense. This is what is happening now, that people are having to make these balances, to make these decisions so that they can work effectively as leaders. It's actually a fascinating time to watch, I
Oh,
think.
we're really fortunate to see this.
Correct.
We really are.
Yes.
So have a wonderful time in New York. And hopefully it snows and you guys can be observing it from the opera or from the wine bar or from wherever.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, Deirdre,
So long for now.
always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. Bye.
Bye.